reached freshman year in college. And then all of a sudden I went to a counselor. They're like, you need to pick a major. I don't know what I want to do. And they're like, what are you good at? I go, I can draw and I'm good at math. They're like, you need to be an architect. I'm like, huh? On point where, and I talk about this all the time, contact me early, okay? Because people have their vision and they don't know. It's like, oh, I really love this house. Well, it's not going to be compliant, or it's going to be very non-cost effective to convert. So I have a client now, she purchased a 4-bedroom house, trying to get it to a 3, and it's not handicapped accessible. I know there's code violations on the property. There's a bathroom built without a permit. And I told her straight up, I said, you need to get your checkbook ready because you're going to have code violations you're going to have to deal with. What I tell them is I'm familiar with the ACA process. I don't specifically do ACA paperwork.
Hello, everyone. If you are new here, welcome. My name is Carline Cadet Francois. You know I am committed to helping you succeed in caregiving. Please consider to like and subscribe and send our guests some love by sending them some comments. Today we are here with Scott Johnson. I am so excited to have him here. He was one of my speakers for the Assisted Living Caregivers Conference, and we plan on bringing him back. But we know around the times of conferences, sometimes people want to connect a bit more, and I decided to bring Scott Johnson. Scott Johnson is the principal architect for Nucleus Design Group, an international recognized firm with offices in Florida, Texas, California, Jamaica, and Vietnam. So he's nationwide with degrees in both mathematics and architecture, plus a master's degree in architect. Scott leads a diverse team. His firm is known for delivering strategic architectural solutions that align with regulatory, zoning, and operational goals, ensuring each project begins with the right foundation. This says a lot. Don't worry, me and Scott is going to go into it. Without further delay, Scott, welcome to the show. Can you introduce yourself?
Hi, good morning, Scott Johnson here. Wow, that was a lot. Made me sound like super fantastic. I so love the introduction. And yeah, I mean, it's a big, broad field that we're dealing with here. And appreciate Carline inviting me. And I love her passion as a part of this. And you always talk about you love what you do. You're never going to work a day in your life type of thing. That's kind of our enthusiasm together. So thank you for having me.
Yes, absolutely. I definitely love what I do. I mean, I've had several positions in life. This position is by far my ideal lifestyle because I really don't feel like I am working, even though if you compare the number of hours that I actually serve and work for my clients, it's longer probably than what I did at my W-2 job when I used to have one, but it fuels me. It makes me feel good to help someone achieve their dream. And we share that goal. And if you go to the conference page, you will see me and Scott. I mean, look like we're having a good time at the conference.
Yeah,
and it's because we are there to deliver value to our audience. And we both share the beauty of helping people achieve their dreams. So I'm excited for our audience to learn a bit more about that. If I were to ask, how did you end up doing this, right?
You know, it's the funniest thing. Everyone's got their story. So I remember sitting a kid, probably middle school, high school, and so forth, trying to stay awake in school and so forth. And I always remember that I was sitting there drawing. And then I had a mentor in high school that was a math teacher. Okay. And then it never really clicked. I was reached freshman year in college. And then all of a sudden I went to a counselor. They're like, you need to pick a major. I don't know what I want to do. And they're like, what are you good at? And I go, I can draw and I'm good at math. They're like, you need to be an architect. I'm like, huh? I'm like, that sounds really hard and a lot of school and so forth. Hence, many years later, that's where I ended up. And, you know, it just kind of grew and became a passion. And it's, you know, I always wanted something at the end of the day, not just to add up numbers, but to see what I did. Physically say, wow, I designed this and it got built. And that's kind of where it evolved to. Then I was really fortunate at a young age, working for firms. We designed ACLFs, big assisted living facilities. I was traveling all around the country, designed a number of hospices. One is in South Florida, actually, and really got my feet wet with that. And that's where my experience came. And then it evolved really into what I do today, which is a lot of different types of projects, but a lot of assisted living facilities because there's a need. There's a desire by clients, and at the end, it's a warm and fuzzy feeling. So that's kind of the long story into a short story. That's my clip note version of how I got to where I'm at.
That is so amazing. And my husband and I, teenager, he's turning 18 and he's a senior this year. Your guidance counselor is asking, what are the things that you like? Those are the things that we keep asking him. And the questions keep changing.
They're probably going to change again, right? It's adolescence, and who knows, sometimes people go to school and they have a great education and they do something else, but that's okay too. But,
absolutely.
Your story's so much different than mine, but here we are, and it's about caring for people. There's a lot of things, a lot of different types of work that I can do. I really enjoy being in the healthcare space, assisted living, even some group homes that I'm involved in, larger assisted living facilities, because they all bring that. It's business. So I can choose to do what I want to do. But these are like generally clients that have a passion and a need. A lot of caregivers that want to become entrepreneurs, a lot. And the very passionate nursing type individual for the most part. So they're caring to begin with, and it makes you feel good about doing that. So it's cool. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And all you hope is that you do your best, that you put things into your children, that they'll go out there and they will do some of the things that you and I are doing. Those medical field people, those entrepreneurs getting into the ALF business, caring people, you hope that they will go find their way caring for people. You mentioned that you work with assisted living facilities. For someone who's listening to this and you're wondering, oh, he works for assisted living facilities, he's an architect, what does that mean? Can we go a little bit into that in details and give some examples of some of the projects you've took on and some of the, pitfalls to avoid, some lessons they should learn?
Sure. So it's very common for what I found is a lot of my clients that want to get into the field are caregivers. I have a client that she is an RN. She works for a hospice type company, and that's what she's doing every day and going into assisted living facilities. So they come to me and it's like, hey, wow, I want to do this. Okay. I try to start with them really early on and give them some guidance. Okay. They just think maybe, let's say for a traditional 6-bed ALF. Okay. They're like, oh, I just want to start one. They don't know the regulatory at all. Okay. It's a regulated facility by ACA, in addition to city guidelines and county guidelines. It's a healthcare facility on a smaller scale. Now, depending on the occupancy load, whether it's 6 up to potentially maybe 14, zoning has a big impact on that. ACA regulates everything, and there's all kinds of different levels of whether it's kitchen or sprinklers or fire generator and everything that's required to put that together. They don't know that. They're like, oh, I bought a house, I'm going to convert it. Well, you have a little bathroom, you have narrow hallways, you don't have handicapped access. So I'm like, I don't have the money to do that. So sometimes my job isn't so easy where, I've had it where I'll be contacted. Hey, ask me early. So that first conversation isn't always pleasant. So I always tell them the truth.
Yeah, education definitely play a major role, because when the person comes to you, they have their own idea of what they're going to do. Those ideas typically don't match what the regulation says. And I met with a client just yesterday. The number of no's that I said, no, you can't do that. No, you need to stop doing that. No, you'll get in trouble for this. This is, because they have an idea based on what they think they can do, but the regulations are very specific about what needs to be done. And people like me and you, if you're watching this and you don't know much about me, I cover licensing and Scott cover architectural. So he's able to come in and help you draw your floor plan and help you establish those ADA compliance. Your doors have to be a certain size and things like that. And Scott can go a little bit more in details about what else he helps do. But when you're speaking to him, he's like, he tore your home and he's like, no, you can't have this. no, you can't have that. And you're wondering why. It's because there are a sets of rules and regulation that goes into this. Can we go into some details about perhaps the projects that you've done before and what are some architectural things that you did to help that client? You mentioned that they should contact you very early on, and they should. And later on, I'll go into details about a client that I have that what's going on in the house is just a nightmare.
You're 100% on point where, and I talk about this all the time, contact me early, okay? Because people have their vision and they don't know. It's like, oh, I really love this house. Well, it's not going to be compliant, or it's going to be very non-cost effective to convert. So a few things, a lot of things is ADA. So you have to worry about 3-foot hallways. You have to worry about a handicap bathroom. You have to worry about turning radiuses. Okay. Handicapped access could be ramps. If you don't want a 2-story house, I have people like, oh, I have a 2-story house. I'm like, that's just not going to work. It's not going to have the staff, too much fall risk and everything. You have to worry about generators. Okay. There's a specification from ACA. The generator has to run for a certain number of days after power failure. There's a safe area that has to be air conditioned by that generator as well. So when you talk about this, it's like, oh, let's just not put in a generator. I generally have to do new electrical calculations because there's all this different work that's been done. We have to show floor plans. It's not just for fire exit or for ADA, but it's for the total package that's going to be required by the county, city, and ultimately ACA. Then sometimes you'll have to put together things for Florida Department of Health. They're going to want to see where sinks and bathrooms are located. So it depends on how extensive the work's going to be. The particular client I'm just finishing up now, they are licensing a 6-bed facility, and then I'm helping them and I'm appearing in front of the government to license them for a 14-bed facility, which would require a variance. And then I would do an additional set of plans to show the additional work that's going to go on to get them up to 14. So these long and short, it's plans, permits, proper contractors, project management to get fully licensed, because at the end of the day, if you don't have a CO and all these temp and all this paperwork that, in addition to what I'm talking about, that Carline does, you are not going to be a licensed assisted living facility in the state of Florida. And if you don't know, you don't know. And I have too many people bought properties and they're like, oh boy, I didn't know, I should not have bought this house. So, and you got your horror stories. I got them too. So, call us early, call Carline, call me. We will collaborate and make sure we give you the best advice possible. And that's it. I like early.
I like early too. And you mentioned a few things, like the CO is the certificate of occupancy. You need that to be able to open your ALF. And that's the form where Scott draw his plans, the health department, the fire department, zoning, everyone is coming to inspect your building. They are not going to just give you approvals without inspecting. Everyone is coming to inspect, the building department, and they're signing off on your paperwork. So you mentioned earlier that for the generator, you have to have like your panels updated. So it depends on how old is the house. It could be a nightmare with how much money you end up spending, because as Scott is talking about this, like he's not putting numbers next to those, right? Because this is what he does, and budgeting for you as the person who wants to get into the business play a major role. Also, the type of structure that you purchase. For example, we have a client that purchased a home that they thought it was a 4-bedroom when in reality it was a 3-bedroom. And then the worst case is the previous owners added an additional bedroom that was not by code, and there's a septic system.
My gosh. And I deal with this across the board in all types of projects. Anything that was built without permits, doesn't meet code, or you have sanitary issues, they're going to want the septic documented. The health department knows what's there. They might not know what's there. So that can be a nightmare. So when you talk about people walk in and they're like, oh, it's 4 bedrooms. Well, that's not the way ACA looked at it. It's a certain number of square feet per bed, and you could have numerous beds in a room. You can have more than 1, more than 2, more than 3, so you could have private, semi-private, or really, not so private. But the reality is there's a certain square footage calculation in and out of those rooms. In addition to is you have requirements, and then you have certain storage for closet space and everything like that. So it becomes very, very complex. So I have a client now. She purchased a 4-bedroom house, trying to get it to a 3, and it's not handicapped accessible. I know there's code violations on the property. There's a bathroom built without a permit. And I told her straight up, I said, you need to get your checkbook ready because you're going to have code violations you're going to have to deal with. Now, I'm not trying to spend your money, but I don't want to lie to you. So it's really tricky. I don't go in and try to spend someone's money. I try to say, we need exit lighting. We need exit signs. If it's over a certain number of beds, we're going to need fire sprinkler. If you're planning on expanding before you open with your 6th bed, let's put the fire sprinkler in now so that when you do your expansion, that isn't a big messy part of it. So you try to do proactive planning, and you're talking about money. I very much have a handle on budgeting, but I'm not the contractors. I know what a generator, 22 kW generator for a small house is going to cost, there's fire sprinkler and so forth, and try to assist the client on budgeting so that they can go get the financing. And it's really tricky with financing. And we spoke about that before we even got online. Financing is a challenge.
Absolutely. I agree. And you know what? You mentioned earlier, they need to know early. And so you see, just like how you know the price of things, even though you don't know it, I know like the range of things because I see so much of it from serving clients throughout the state of Florida. And one of the things that I have them do is I have them send me their quotes. And so I can stay up to par. And then sometimes they just want to know what I think about this. You know how it is. They send everything to you because they trust the level of help that you're giving them. You have seen more than they have seen. And you're right. The earlier you tell them, prep for this, as part of my onboarding process, I tell my clients how much they can expect to prep for, because like you said, sprinkler system, generators, reserve gas, and making sure you have a floor plan, which Scott can take care for you, that have sufficient room. If you're going to fit 2 people in a room, you need to have a big amount of space, at least 120 square footage. You really should double that, just so that your staff can have room and people can feel comfortable. But there's so much that go into conversion part, right? The conversion part where you're installing things. And Scott, how do you work with contractors? Like, part of my referral systems are contractors that can help my clients get over their roadblock. Being that you know what's supposed to be done, how do you deal with contractors to make sure it is a smooth process for our clients? Because like you said earlier, they are busy professionals. They are people usually from the medical field. And so they're tired. Most of them still have their full-time job, and they're trying to work things out to get their buildings open as one of their exit strategy. How do you work with contractors to make their lives a bit easier?
Yeah, so that's great. I love the question. Collaboration with the whole team is so important. Starting with coming in, you can say, hey, Scott, I have a project, I have a client, I need to bring you on board. Now, all of a sudden, we built our team. The contractors, they're going to do a specific scope of work. Now, what we'll have to do is I would meet with the client and we can discuss some of our options. Not everything's going to be mandatory, but some things will be suggestions. Once we establish that scope of work, and all these contractors are going to want plans or directives, I can assist with the bidding process, or we can collaborate and do that together. And being that I'm very up to speed on what happens in the field, I'm not just the guy sitting at the desk. When I go out, I know what I'm looking at. So I would like to be involved from start to finish, to the time where you're ready for the walkthrough, especially with fire, closing out the permits with building, but with fire, because that's all life safety. Fire isn't just fire. People have to understand that's going to be a lot of ADA stuff in addition to the building department. That's going to be smoke alarms, fire detectors, going to be any kind of life safety type issue. They really call it fire, but it's really life safety. So I would like to be involved in the kind of pre-inspection at that point, supervise the contractors, and then doing a pre-survey of the work that's completed, so that when everyone comes out and does their final inspections, we go through flying colors, because time is money at that point. We're done. We want to make sure if we miss something, let's do it right now. So the owners, Carline, you're right. They're busy. They don't know. So we have to do that for them. And I'm happy to.
Absolutely. I love that. You mentioned a few things: life safety, fire. When the fire department comes out, they're not coming to be your bestie. Remember, these are people who serve, right? And their way of serving is making sure that your home meets code. And so, God forbid, in case of a fire, the residents and your staff and yourself, if you're in the building, are able to come out. And this is how they serve. In fact, some counties have window requirements. One of the things that we check for our clients is the window requirements, the fire sprinkler system. Just about everywhere in Florida now are requiring fire sprinkler systems, especially if you're going to do a 6-bed or more. And then we also have, you mentioned the life safety. I deal with the life safety plans, the life safety evacuation, the evacuation route, primary, secondary evacuation routes. And I work close hand in hand with the architect, the person who designed the floor plan, to make sure, because I know what the fire department want to see. And I know when ACA comes to do their initial inspection, I know what they are going to want to see. So it's a team effort to say, hey, Scott, I need this to look like this based on, what you do. I know certain counties exactly what they're looking for. So I'll tell you, can we adjust this? Can we make this floor plan look like this? Can we do this? Can we do that? And it's really a team collaboration. And the same thing with people who installed the generator, for example, the sprinkler system, the fire alarm system. I need agreements from all of these people, and we're in constant communication to make sure, one, the client don't have to deal with so many things. Of course, there are some things that they have to deal with, but some things me and Scott can take off your plate, because we can communicate with the generator person and tell them this is what we're looking for, right? I mean, I'm excited to go into what else we get to do for our clients. So if I were to ask, what are some issues that you've seen that comes up when people fail to contact the right resources very early on? When it comes to the architectural part, what are some issues that you've seen? And how did you help them solve that?
That's a great question as well. So what ends up happening, and this is going back to contact us early. I like to, and some people never think about this, and I talk about this across the board with all types of projects. If you're looking for a property for a specific use, I can give you guidance and look at the properties. I don't have to go out and spend all day doing it, but send me what you're looking at. Send me a plan, and Carline knows this 100%. Hey, is there another ALF down the street? Will it even meet zoning requirements? Is it in HOA that prohibits an ALF? Is there some kind of misfunction with the property? Is it multi-level? Is it 2-story? Is the property an old style house with really small rooms and narrow hallways? I would suggest at that point, maybe you want to evaluate, because I have people like, oh, I just love this house. I'm like, well, maybe you should move there. This isn't a good ALF fit. I have numerous clients that purchase properties that either they did not have the funds and the resources to finish the project because they got the property and like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize it's going to take so much money to finish. Or it became very cost prohibitive because now all of a sudden maybe this hallway's too narrow and there's bathrooms on each side. And now you're having to move bathrooms. Maybe, there's numerous steps or maybe there's illegal structures. I've had it where another ALF was within less than 100-foot difference, meeting the 1,000-foot requirement to be another ALF down the street. And they couldn't even get a variance for it. The county said, you can try, but we're not going to approve it. So I like to give good advice early. And, again, a lot of folks just love the house. I'm like, this is not a fit. It's going to cost you too much money or it's just not going to work.
You know what else? That is a nightmare story. I want to say about a month ago, a client hired me. She had purchased a home and supposedly the realtor checked the zoning and stated that the home was zoned, and this client proceeded to purchasing the building, right? Hired me for her consultation services to help her with licensing, only to find out, in fact, the home is not zoned for ALF. When we talk about doing the research online, people have to know that it's not just about what is on the ACA.My Florida website. There is also different issues that comes with zoning. So until you submit your zoning application and let the zoning department do their research. Sometimes, depending on where it is, what county or city it is, they will ask you to do some of that research as part of your zoning application. We are more than happy to help you with that service, but don't take the word of calling the planning and zoning department if this home is zoned and they tell you yes, and now you're hiring everybody, right? And if you're buying the house, it's even worse, because now you're buying the house for an ALF. Now you find out you can't do the ALF, and now you're going to have to sell it or figure out what you're going to do with it, which lead me to the next question, right, Scott? So we have a lot of people that are debating whether they should do new constructions. Part of my client base are people that have new constructed homes. And so they are debating if they should do new construction. What is the difference between new construction and also buying an established building? When it comes to the architectural aspects of things, what is your advice? Can you give any feedback on whether someone, if they have the ability to purchase a new construction versus a building that was already existing for quite a few years?
Yeah, so new construction, what's really fantastic about that, I always tell people under a different platform and different kind of presentation, I love a blank piece of paper. I love blank because then I'm not really having to go back through and fix things. We can make it exactly the way you want. It's just fantastic because all right, we're going to design more than a 6-bed facility. We're going to have the proper variance in order potentially to get, say, 12 to 14 bed or something like that. And we can make the layout exactly the way someone wants. Hence, maybe living quarters for staff, not having washer and dryer in the garage and different things like that, and carving out office administrator space. And you can look for the proper piece of land and design the space exactly the way you want it. And we don't have to worry about conversion and guesswork. Once it's approved and you get a certificate of occupancy from this county or city, you're approved. You're done. You don't have to worry about going back for all these other crazy, maybe they're going to approve this and that. Now, the downfall is you're going to have to look for the land. You're going to have to prepare plans. You're going to have to build. That's a year-long process.
Yes, depending on how fast your contractors work and if they are people of integrity and keep things moving, curing deficiencies from the city.
Yeah, and it takes a while for me to prepare plans. It takes longer to get a building permit. And then if you have a good contractor, he can knock it out. But I always tell people more than a year. So that's the downside. But the upside is you can get exactly what you want, and you're going to have a very marketable product for clients, and you're going to have a very marketable, you're going to get, I believe, a better rent roll. You have to figure out their demographics and everything, better rent roll. And then if you so choose, it's a property that you're going to sell one day, you're going to probably have a newer property with a great rent roll to market. So those are the kind of caveats there. If you purchase the right property, and leasing's a different story because then you're just perpetually paying rent, but that's a less expensive way for people to get into this business. So that's an option for some folks. I get it. But now if you're going to purchase an existing property, you really have to be mindful of what you're getting into. And this goes back to the evaluation, whether it's with Carline or myself or a collaboration thereof, that we come in and give you advice early on. Purchase and you bought the right property, no one's going to be happy because you're not going to like what we tell you. It's going to be a lot more work and so on and so forth. If you lease a property, not everyone wants to lease a property and then you convert it to an ALF. Let's face it, they just want to rent the house. They're like, hey, I have a 3-bedroom house for rent. What, you want to convert it to an ALF or some kind of other medical facility? No, I'm not doing it. I don't have to allow you to do it. I'll lease it to you, but I don't have to allow the use. So it gets a little tricky on that. I'm a big proponent of purchase, but purchase properly. And I have worked with clients where they did lease a property and did have a landlord that was on board with the conversion. So you already know, Carline, it's sometimes just like a guesswork, like what else are we going to have to do and what are they going to ask for? And it's not as much clarity if it's a property that is already licensed, then even with doing your chow and switch, you're months and months and months to get converted over. So anyone that thinks that this is a quick process, be aware it's not a quick process. Hire your consultant, hire your architect, hire your team. We'll make it as painless as possible.
Absolutely. And you said a lot there. With new constructions, from my experience, I love it because For example, one of the major things during the conversion period where you're adding sprinklers into the walls. So imagine having to tear up in the walls. Not you, your contractor would do that. But with a new construction, you can just have everything perfect. By the time you put up the drywall, everything is already laid out and it's perfect. But we know, even though there's an upside on how long the new construction could take, I think ultimately it is worth it if someone is able to do it, because it just makes life so much easier. And then you mentioned some of the different ways that people have known to get into the business with the already established home. I think we talk more into what you should look out for, what you should avoid for that, but mainly your zoning and the square footage of your home, ADA compliance. And if you have a tenant in there, make plans for when those installations will happen. If you live in the house, make plans for when those installations will happen, because it's when they install, especially the fire alarm system, it gets a little messy, right? So consider all of those things. And then you mentioned the rent or the lease. I recommend people not to do that. Instead, try to do a joint partnership. I have one of my clients that we're working on an ALF with a builder, and part of the plan is to open several ALFs. She's the operator and he is the person bringing the building, and it's a 50-50 split. And so even though it is his building, they are splitting the cost 50-50, and it's a business that they both own. And so when the lease expired, that's when people really have issues, because you spend money. Even if the landlord say, yeah, I approve the use, you spend money to get all those installations. What happens when landlord don't want to renew your lease, even though it's a long-term lease? So think about those things. If it's the only way you can get in, consider those installation fees. Perhaps you can talk about it with your landlord, maybe for a higher rental fee, and then you could split the differences. But most landlords don't want to do that. We live in Florida, right? Like there's tenants everywhere. Why should you do all of that when you could simply rent it to somebody else? Have you come across renter's nightmare from your duties of taking care of your clients?
I have one client right now, and they actually did lease a property and we did a conversion. But what I suggested as a part of it, that they just, have a real estate attorney and get long-term leases. What they've done for the lease standpoint, and I'm a big proponent on owning the property because you have the control, or at least if they're going to get into a lease situation, because now all of a sudden, you're pumping all this money into the property, do a lease option. Maybe there's an owner that wants to sell, but the market's a little soft like it is now, that they might do a lease option. That's a potential way for clients, because I'll have clients reach out to me and say, hey, this is what I want to do. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe we'll look for a property that you could do a lease option as opposed to just straight out purchase. And that'll give you a little time to get into it. So what I've seen, the people that are successful with leases are the ones that have their ducks in a row and have maybe numerous to perpetual long-term leases, 5-year with 5-year renewals, 5-year renewals or longer, so that they're locked in for a very long time. I have not come across anyone that's in an eviction process, but I have run into situations where they were doing the conversion and they just ran into these roadblocks and they ran out of money, and they're just renting the places as group homes or Airbnbs and things like that, because they're a good solid business person, but now they're bound into a lease and they don't want to walk. So it can become a nightmare. And I think this is about the knowledge. There's many folks that are in the healthcare field that are very smart that don't know this and know all these things that we're talking about. I know I can save you time and money. And I know if you get involved with a consultant and administrator like Carline, you're going to save a lot of time and money, because you're going to have the roadmap. Because you don't know what you don't know.
Absolutely. You said a lot here. And part of the leasing negotiations is work with your realtor, because you can literally negotiate your renewal with an automatic amount of renewals. And so you're securing 5, 10, 15 years in advance if it works out that way, right? Mm-hmm. But I do have a horror story where when you do this full time and this is all that you do, you come across so many different aspects of this business. You're like, wow, I didn't know this could happen. Where she was actually a friend of mine, and I was introduced to her when I initially got into the business, because people don't share information. And she was one of those people that was open. She had rented a piece of property to open her ALF, and her ALF was up and running, and it was a great ALF. The owner was renewing her lease until the owner decided to sell the building. And my friend was not able to actually purchase the building. And so she ended up having to literally sell her ALF to the person who ended up purchasing. It was a big, big mess. And it was painful because she could not buy the building. But ACA would not renew her license because, we have to renew these licenses every 2 years and you have to send it 60 days in advance. Without the renewal lease, ACA would not even renew her license. And now, had she not go with what the landlord wanted to do, she would have been in trouble for operating without a license, because once you can't renew your license, ACA shut you down, and now you're operating without a license, which, that's all the issues that comes with that. And so he was basically forced into the corner where she had to sell her business. It was either letting the license expire and calling those family members to come and pick up their residence, and her business is closed just like that because she can't operate, or selling it to the person who's able to buy the building. So a lot to say. You mentioned a real estate lawyer and all of those things, but even as a landlord myself, when it comes to renting your space, and even though you're making a difference in the community, especially with allowing people to open these beautiful, wonderful homes for our seniors, sometimes you want flexibility and you want to be able to change. It's a business for us. We want to be able to sell when we want to sell, exit when we want to exit. And then for the person who rents the building and establish the business in it, they're just stuck in the middle. It's just a tough situation. Anyway, horror story. Buy your own building, okay? Just be patient until you can buy your own building.
Take control. Absolutely. You know what? They're out there, and I'm sure you have more, but that just really stinks because I'm sure she didn't see it coming. She had so much heart and soul probably packed into taking care of her clients, and it was probably tough enough leaving. And, the fact that she couldn't buy the building and everything, it was just like, oh my gosh, it was probably a really tough time for her. And at least she was able to get out, but not the best exit strategy at all.
And for her clients too, because they loved her. And, it was just a tough situation for everybody. So have you also worked with, say, for example, ACA? I know you don't work directly with ACA. If someone were to say, do you work with ACA? How do you answer that?
What I tell them is I'm familiar with the ACA process. I don't specifically do ACA paperwork. I assist in providing some of the forms or plans and procedures that I can feed to the administrator, the consultant, to get through that process. The main thing that I try to profess is when I get into a property, I know the ACA regulations. So I'm not the paperwork guy. I don't know any of the forms, but I know the requirements. And so I try to feed, like Carline, hey, Scott, I need all these things. Okay, no problem. What are the specifics about the property? You tell me, like we talked about earlier, kind of caveats about different cities and counties and so forth. Okay, no problem. Let me work on it. And then I give you a draft. And so I kind of stay in my lane on that because I know the ACA paperwork is just a lot. And people talk about it. It's like, so, okay, you got to get a license with ACA. That's not just filling out an application. I know that. You got a lot of things you have to submit.
When I show people how much work I do, because they will come in and I'm like, I have a roadmap. We do have a roadmap. It's very proven. And I work on it on a daily basis because the rules, and then I go to different trainings and I'm like, I can structure this differently. I can, even though the requirement is asking me this, I can make it better. This is where my policies and procedure background comes in. I'm a little geek on the backside, being that I came from law enforcement and we did our jobs based on policies and procedures. So it's okay for me to read a thick piece of zoning regulation from a city saying that my client is not zoned, and I will find one word And I am like, yeah, this work, your regulations state this, and that. And it has worked so well for me that I have been able to get my clients. One client had to pay, I think it was like $2,500 versus $350 or $250 from one word. I'm like, this, but it's like, but this is my lane. This is what I like. If you
Yep.
told me to draw a floor plan, I would not know where to begin. But when collaborating to make sure our client's licensing goes well, I will write the fire safety plan, for example. I will write the life safety plan, and then you will do the plans for me to make sure those plans, they match and they make sense, and the fire department will approve it. And this is how sometimes I like to ask those kind of questions, because I want my audience to know specifically what do I do, specifically what do you do, so that when they reach out to you, they're not overwhelming you with things that is not really in your lane. The same for me. Nonetheless, I think both of us want to provide resources and services to our clients, regardless whether we provide the service or not. We've been in the industry and we know those who may be able to provide that service. And with all of that said, is there anything else you wanna go over and you wanna educate that they should know about?
Yeah, I always go back. I'm going to say it till I'm out of this business. Bring us in early. Okay. We have a passion. Carlene's very experienced in this. She's an administrator. She knows the people in the industry to help plug in. It's not a one size fits all. My piece may be bigger depending on how involved I am, whether it's involved in handling the contractors, construction management, besides just doing drawings and permitting and so forth. And at the end, I really like helping people. If this is your dream, you have to have your dream team to be able to do this, and we can do this together, and you'll be happy.
This is why I think most of us are so passionate about this industry, because the people who are in it, they legitimately care for our seniors. And I like to say, I was raised by a grandmother, and I find everything is in place. I don't have to fight for my rights. I don't have to seek for legitimacy for the things that I want to do. I just focus on growing myself, building myself, because I believe our seniors fought that fight. And now we can come in and we can live as if everything was already like this. And now it's time for us to help them, because now they need us. And for me, it's a privilege for me to be able, when my clients say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I know you're very busy," I'm like, it's a privilege. It's an honor to serve you. And they think I'm just saying that to make them feel good. No, that's how I feel, because I know if I can help you, you're going to go and help a senior person who gave me this opportunity to create a good home for her, make her feel loved, give her a good home. And I'm playing a small part of helping you with this process, because you don't know it and I do it on a daily basis, making sure that I hold your hand so you stay encouraged, because this process can be hard, even with help and with the right people. You have people that come across funding issues, and so now you hired me for licensing, and now I'm connecting you with people that can help you. People that come up with different issues, things happen in their families, with their children, and then their jobs sometimes find out they're opening an ALF, and now they have all types of issues. So a lot of the times, even beyond making sure that the building is established, the business is very properly structured, you also end up taking care of the person, that entrepreneur who's getting into the business, because
Sure.
they have so much going on. And it's truly a privilege to be able to do that while working from home. My past,
Wow.
while
Yeah.
working from home, while traveling half of the time. And it's truly a privilege to be able to do that. And we share that.
The passion's there. You can tell. You can't fake this, Carline, right? It's one of these things where, and I've known you for quite a while now, and it's like you have that smiling face, and I'm sure back behind the scenes, there's plenty going on with business or with the family that could have you not have the smiling face. But at the end of the day, it's like we could do a lot of different things in business, but you're not in this business if you don't care. And I don't think that that's hard to tell from folks like us. and you're a leader in the industry, and people know that. It's your event, your conference. That was so amazing, and people, even your staff, you had all these folks that were volunteers. Like, I'll volunteer because they believe in you, and that's really important. People believing in you. You can't fake that. That didn't happen overnight either. Like, wow, we love this lady. Oh, that's cool. That's it.
Thank you for sharing that. It's a lifetime of serving people and not expecting anything back, because I do believe serving people, there's a type of joy in it that is beyond what money can pay you. And at the conference, I was just so grateful to see everyone coming together, to see how this vision and how different people came, collaborated with us. We had the stats to sell out. Once you see that you're sold out, you're like, oh my God, the conference, we're like 30 days before the conference, we already sell out. It's a testament to serving people. And my volunteers, I didn't ask any of them. They're like, a lot of them are people that I have served, people that I have helped open facilities for, people that are within my communities, and I've been cultivating them for the longest. And they're like, I want to help. Some of them travel throughout the state of Florida to show up, pay their own hotels, and just want to be a part of it. I was just so overwhelmed with gratitude to see that. And it definitely motivated me to serve better, to improve myself, to just be the person that they envisioned me to be, right? Easier said than done. But thank you for sharing that. And it really did motivate me. I came back, my cup was full, and I have a vision, and it looks good, and people want to be a part of it. We have our sponsors who showed up. This was the first conference, and they just wanted to be a part of it. They came out with their pocketbooks, and they're like, we're going to support this cause. So it goes a long way.
Yeah, it was the first conference, and I was grateful to be involved. And it was just had a really cool vibe to it, and to sell out your first one and to come out with the glass full. You could come out just like drained and beat up, but you probably had to catch your breath a little bit. And then you're like, oh, we're doing another conference. Now I'm going to start a podcast, and I'm keeping my foot on the gas. Let it off for a second. Now, like, we're going. And, it's, hey, we're in business. We're business people. We're going to be compensated to do our work, but we also want a good product. And a lot of it is relationships and about making sure our clients are satisfied at the end of the day. And it's not a one size fits all kinds of different personalities, different situations. And we talk about financing, finding the right properties. I sometimes give opinions, and I know my expertise, but I have a lot of experience in this. I'll give advice when possible, but I try to really give more construction and design advice and costs and everything like that, what they need to be prepared for, because that's a big ticket item, and they just don't know. So, we have all this enthusiasm. We just have to have a really great team. And Carline's talking like, oh, she has hired to do the paperwork for ACA and be an administrator or guide in that. And someone needs to go get their administrator license. That's no easy task either. You have to encourage the folks to do that, study and take that hard test. So that no one wants to take a state test. They're not any fun. So a lot of hats that we have to put on. And I'm sure quite often you're a shoulder to cry on with these folks. And it's just, it's what we do.
You know what they made me do?
Oh, I can't
You know
wait.
what my clients make me do? Years ago, they said, well, Carline, you're so good with explaining these words. What does this mean? This is why, because I'm an educator, right? I want to make sure once I get them licensed, they're going to go out and they're going to thrive. And I want to say my clients are thriving, opening their ALFs. They go out. I'm so joyful to see that they're actually finding clients and filling up their beds, and it fills me up. And they said, why don't you help us with passing the administrative state exam? I mean, you took the test, you know the rules, why don't you? So me being me, I took on a group of my clients that didn't pass the test yet. And every Thursday we would meet at 6:30 p.m. and we would go live, and I would just go over the rules and would come up with scenario-based questions. And so many aha moments I get. They pass their tests, and now it's a product. It's a product
Oh,
that I have
oh,
the,
oh.
yeah, I know, right? They tell us what to do. And if you care enough, you do it. And I did it and I recorded all of the videos. And now it's a product that it's online now. It's proven. People like it. They pass. You look for ways to help them. Why not? I do have the knowledge. I did take the test.
Sure.
I did manage an ALF, and I help people get licensing throughout the day. If I just listen to them and take some time and help them, it makes me feel good. So I did it. But earlier you mentioned that we're also compensated, and now it's a passive product. People are buying it online, and I created it once because I wanted my clients to pass their tests.
Not easy test to pass because most of the state tests are all about regulatory. They're about
Mhm.
it. And I know with the administrator exam, it's about situation. So if you don't know the law, the guideline, then you can't institute that into a situation. And that's what you're probably teaching, I assume, more than anything else. A lot of these tests, if you have the knowledge, oh yeah, you have the knowledge, but that's not the way they test you. They don't want you to answer A or B and have it simple. They want to put you in a situation. And that's really tricky, especially some of these tests are in English and not everyone speaks English as their first language. So then it
Mhm.
gets a little complex as far as that interpretation goes. So that's a really
Yes.
cool thing, how you're able to take that, fill a need and monetize it as well. Hey, that's good stuff.
Yeah, it's really a win-win when you can help to do that. And sometimes people dismiss the information because they feel it's not something that they will ever do. But I am telling you, the stuff on that state exam are things that you're going to go through on a daily basis. So it's worth knowing them. How do I know? Because I took the test, I'm an administrator, and I manage for years. So I know that information that they're pushing you to learn is for your own good. It's just let's make sure we come in the right angles and help you to know it and remember it and go and take the test and pass it. We
Awesome.
are planning the 2026 conference. So
Cool.
this time is going to be a 2 days conference. We are planning to invite you back, Scott.
Thank you. Thank you. You didn't get enough. Okay, I'm coming. Thank you.
Yes. So it's going to be a 2 days conference. I think this is the method we're going to use going forward because we had to say no to so many people who wanted to join. And we want to give them more time to actually learn more, network more, and come out with more detailed information. And so we're splitting everything into a 2 days. If you go on the website, you will find the location, the time, and more details about the conference itself. But it's already saying coming out with my cup full and then taking a break, right?
Wow.
Carline
Wow.
don't take breaks.
And maybe you'll sell out a month ahead of time as well. That'd be like touche. I didn't even realize that you were almost like, I guess, overbooked. You had people on the waiting list for this next one. So it sounds to me like you're going to be in a really good position. Maybe some different topics, different speakers. Of course, I love them coming back. And I just met so many fantastic people and some good business connections and so forth. And if that happens, that's great. But I just love coming to present and share like we are today. The rest comes along with it. The rest comes with it.
Yes. Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
that part.
Definitely will have you back. How can my audience find you? How can they contact you?
So I can give a phone number. I can give you my website. The website is nucleusdesigngroup.com. Very simple, nucleusdesigngroup.com. Give my business phone number. It's 954-605-8087. We're located in Pompano Beach. It's our main office. In this day and age, we're kind of working all over. And very simple, shoot a text, shoot an email, go on our website. There's links there to send an email through the company website. And, we can do a phone consultation and then we can discuss your project and kind of go from there. If it makes sense, chances are then I would collaborate. If I was referred by Carline, then we would probably already be on board on a collaboration if I If I was not, then I would probably go back to her, say, hey, I have a client. We need to, well, here's where we're at and we need to get going, that type of thing.
I love it. Well, Scott, I am so grateful that you're here today. Of course, we love to serve people and we want to bring them valuable information that will make their lives easier. And I'm grateful that you took the time to come out and educate my audience. And for my audience, I want you to send Scott a message. Let him know that you are sending some love. You are sending him some gratitude for showing up today. If you found any value in this podcast, I want you to share it with a friend, like it, subscribe, and reach out to Scott and send him some love. Until next time, I am happy to serve you. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.